almost reduces the clarity of decision making because of the emotional level of worry that they have and the fear that they're going to run out. In that moment, yes, as you said, well, you really got to know them. You got to do this and this. But dude, I gotta close something fast, says the founder. Just with that, and in fact, you can relate to this too. What advice would you give when they are that desperate?
Yeah. Speaking of priorities, payroll is almost always the priority. And so, yeah, I don't want to suggest or portray like there's this, if you have 10 days of payroll left, that you should say, I'll hold out. I would say scoot back from that. And in your budgeting and planning process, give yourself ample time. And I appreciate, like, hey, if you're in stealth mode, you're coming out of stealth mode, or if, you're trying to raise that seed round, this is different. I think there's a couple things that you can think about, though. Is what is the reputation of the person? What is their track record? Personal track record, again, not the track record of the firm. And that can give you some orientation. So if it is a younger person that's newer, less track record, you can generally assume that they're going to be eager and very engaging. Maybe not nice, but eager and engaging, trying to carve out their brand, their personal brand. And so you can orient to that. About, hey, this person's going to be really likely going to be really interested in being very close to the fire, close to the flame. I think the other end of the spectrum where, hey, I'm now this person's 14th board, just law of large numbers, the amount of time that person's going to be able to dedicate to you is going to be razor thin. There's probably a reason that person has 14 boards. She's probably an amazing investor. Probably, I don't know, but could be an amazing investor, deep Rolodex, deep expertise. So that tells you, though, that person has very limited amount of time. So you're going to have to be surgical about how your asks and how you engage with that person. So I think there's some tells, if you will, that you can if you have to take money before you have an opportunity to really build a relationship, then at least there's some signals. The other thing is, depending on the round, diligence means different things, but take it upon yourself during the diligence process. Obviously, if you're on fumes from a cash flow standpoint or cash in the bank standpoint, you want to get through diligence as fast as you can, but you can get to know your investor and get a feel for what that engagement's going to be like during your diligence process.
Yes, well said.
And the deal docs negotiation. Yes. Is your investor and the firm's lawyer, are they picking at every single little thing, or are they honed in on the critical items and nothing else? They're not fighting over every little thing. I think there's a lot of signaling there too.
Right.
Yeah. I think two small points. One, sometimes even if you don't need the money, you're not cash strapped, but when you further along the process, it's been 2 months, and then the money is coming now, only little things left. You start to make plans, and your team starts making plans. Everybody makes plans. So the walls close in on you a lot more at the end. So the founder needs to be cognizant of that too. And Joe, about what you said, like how the partner will react. Sometimes on both parties, CEO or the partner level, don't know how the legal teams are fighting over little tiny things because they have to be the right about one little word there. So for a founder to raise that issue with the partner, hey, can you come in and then insert, why are they spending our mutual money on this and waste our time? And you can actually get a lot more from how that partner is going to behave in the future as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing that I would, as we all know, like whatever in a term sheet, one of the last lines of the term sheet is, you are going to allow us to spend X on all deal expenses. UCO, you're going to allow the investor to spend X dollars on this deal. On diligence. Well, you can rest assured the lawyers see that number, and that is the invoice every single time.
Yes.
Surprise, surprise. I don't know
Yeah.
how that happened.
Exactly. It's just random.
And I want to close the very topic I brought up with advice to our listeners and viewers from someone who's been in that starvation mode, desperate to meet payroll. I will say this, you're not going to like this comment, but I found out that what I think is the worst thing in the world to reduce headcount, to actually give the bad news to the internal team, is not the worst thing in the world. To buy the time by reducing expenses, communicating, hey, we're going to have to furlough, we're going to have to do something, actually come up with a better solution when you give yourself just a little bit more oxygen to come up with clear thinking and ability to plan something and to land the right investor, versus always being propelled, as I was in the past, by I've got to keep my commitments to my employees, I got to keep them happy. No, it's you got to do the right thing at that time.
So true, Benoit. So
Ike?
true.
Right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Hopefully we can get into this topic, but this is the difference, I think, between the first-time founders and the second and more, right?
Yeah.
This is one of the lessons you learn in the hard way.
yeah. And with that said, just because it's a juicy topic, how do you, as a very prolific investor, balance the priorities and the responsibilities up of the LPs as well as all the portfolio CEOs all saying, feed me, feed me, feed me? Right?
That is this seat that I'm in. That is what makes this job unique, I think, compared to most, compared to virtually any. We're not a marketplace, obviously. We're not just connecting LP dollars to great founders. And I think it is from our seat. I think our LPs are transparent about their expectations, about their return expectations, about the types of companies that they want us to invest in. Like for us as a Series B, Series C, Series C stage investor, our LPs expect us a certain risk profile of company that we invest in. So that part I think is pretty straightforward. And then from the other end of the spectrum, with how do we align with the CEO? I think that is the key thing. Is I have learned I've learned lessons over the years, and I fundamentally believe that the responsibility of the investor is to help the CEO construct an investment arrangement and a deal that creates alignment and does not create air gaps between what's good for the investor and good for the founder, good for the rest of the cap table. I think when that occurs, it makes things hard, because you will find those pockets of misalignment in your journey, and it creates problems. So I try to avoid ending up in creating those scenarios. Sorry, I don't mean to be vague, but I hope that's clear enough.
Ike?
No, it is clear. I think that's from the CEO's perspective, right? As a founder friendly VC, they need to see you as like somebody that they can do the first call when there's a problem in the company. But they also need to understand that you have your responsibilities to LPs, and I think if they know how the delineation works, just like you explained, like from the LPs, they don't really get into what is happening in every single portfolio company last quarter, right? That's not the place for them, right? The place for them is your results, obviously, but also the profile of the companies that you invest with their money, right, from the pool.
Mhm.
I think explaining the founders these dynamics will eliminate any misconceptions about your role as a VC between the two
Yeah.
parties.
Yeah, I think that is spot on, Ike. I think, eh, regardless of what's, the stage you're at, the industry you're in, all these, the amount of money you're trying to raise, um, how much are you selling, control, not, more than 50%, less than 50%. I think how normal your business and this round looks to everything else that investor does is an important question that a founder should ask. If you are of your lead investor. So if your lead investor is normally a buyout investor, but they're taking a flyer here and going to take a minority, how they typically engage with portfolio companies is much different. If they are generally a late stage investor, but now there's something spectacular about your business, and so now they're going to be a seed investor and lead a seed round. It's a different muscle. The
Yeah.
opposite is also true. If someone's typically a seed stage investor, but they're just going to bulk up and write that $20 million check to lead a Series C round, it's just a different skill set, a different approach at that stage. So I think you hit the nail on the head. Like how normal is what you're doing. If you're pick the industry and like you're biotech, and this investor is usually a SaaS investor, do they understand what you do? I mean, it's to Benoit's point. Hey, it may not matter. I'm keeping the lights on. I'm keeping my team in place. But the more normal, the more down the fairway you are for their portfolio and style investing, the better off and the happier you're likely going to be.
Super. That I just learned something there, right there. Thank you. That was very good. Related back to the founders, Joe, if you could advise all of us, what do you normally see in terms of errors, mistakes before a founder gets funded, and what errors and mistakes you regularly see after they're founded? What do you see regularly before they get funded, and after they get funded?
It's a great questions. I don't see it as often now, but I used to see this a lot where a founder would say, I'm not taking investor calls. I'm heads down. We're too busy. Like I just don't have time for you. And then they wait for the round to start before they start building relationships with investors. And then they fall into this trap. They might get funded. They might get 10 term sheets, but they don't know the people they're getting these 10 term sheets from. And then the likelihood, it's like Russian roulette, the likelihood that they're ending up with an investor, personality of an investor that they're not happy with, they're kind of stuck with what they get. So I would say that is an issue. I would also say, as the three of us are parents, and we each of us has the smartest, most beautiful, most talented, in Ike's case, young ladies,
Two girls in Joe's case.
and two girls in my case as well.
Yeah.
Most talented people in the world, and I think they are. But the rest of the world may not think they're the number one smartest person in the world. So I think as founders, it's easy to fall into that trap as well, thinking that this is the best company that any investor in the world is going to come across, and it's going to be a fast process. It's going to be a layup to raise money. And so I'm going to wait and time my raise perfectly because although my lawyer said it's going to take 6 months, I only think it's going to take 6 weeks. And then lo and behold, I'm wrong. And so I would say that's the other thing is build in a lot of cushion maybe on the time that you need to raise. If it goes fast, what'd you lose? But if it's prolonged, to your point, what levers do you end up having to pull? The other thing is, I would definitely, sorry, this is all investor oriented, but I would make sure, getting back to this, am I an N of one? Am I likely an N of one in their portfolio, or do they have other? It's like that Sesame Street skit about which one of us doesn't
Not
belong.
like the other. Yeah.
You don't want to be the company in their portfolio that's some extreme outlier. You want to, generally speaking, you want to more or less look like everything else they typically do. So I would say those are some of the traps that founders might fall in the fundraising process. I don't know that this is a problem, but again, I spend all my time, generally speaking, Series B, Series C, and after. My counsel for founders when they're thinking about building their team is hire C-suite people that have done what you need them to do before. Don't let people learn how to do a job on your dime. When you're early stage, that's probably not the case. You can't afford those kinds of people, and there's probably not enough meat on the bone for them to do the thing that they're trained to do. You need utility players. But as you get to 5, 7, 10, 15, 20 million in ARR revenue, now you're at a point where you can start to hire specialists, hire, a VP of sales that's been a VP of sales before in your space at your stage. They know exactly what they show up, Cameron, they show up, they know exactly what to do the day they show up. They just need to learn your product, learn your culture, and they are off to the races. So I think that is the consistent theme. And then the other point I'd make, Binoy, is when, as a CEO founder, when you're at 0 in revenue, there is a job description, a job requirement, which is I do everything. When you're at $1 million in ARR, the job changes. When you're at 10 million, the job changes. And when you're at 50 million, the job changes. So I think knowing that my job is about to change and sort of getting the framework of what that change needs to look like for the success of my company is really important. The sort of the rule of thumb that I have, is what are at my stage, the Series B, Series C stage, what are the 5 things that CEO founder, that I have to do, that no one else in the world can do, more or less, except me? Those are the things you really need to focus all of your time and effort on. And then everything else, push it off the plate, push it off your calendar onto the plates and schedules of the people that you entrusted when you hired them.
Wow.
That
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Love
So
One guy's
just
opinion.
to add to all that, like I think I'm living this through, like I'm hiring these days a lot, so this is fresh in my mind. I'll have 2 comments. First is, when you want to scale, let's say you're hiring a C-suite, right? Like Series B, Series D, whatever, 10 million, 20 million, and you're bringing somebody expert that's gonna scale. You just because they worked at a big company with 100 million doesn't mean they're the right person. You're looking for
100%.
somebody who took it from 10 to 100, and you are looking for if they were the ones who actually hand in the kitchen, not they just
Mhm.
benefited from a market trend or something external, right? That's one.
Oh,
Number
yes.
2, like I interviewed 3 people in the past couple of days. This is for a QA job. This is for a startup, right? So, in my case, I hunt them on LinkedIn. So this is not inbound. This is just outbound. Me finding these people, and these guys started as an individual contributor. As the startup grew, they became managers. So one of them, she said, I enjoy being manager now, and I want to be a manager. And in my case, I'm not hiring a manager. I am looking for somebody who's done this before and repeat one. They experienced that startup high. I'm looking for that people that wants the same high. The second one also did the same thing, but it says, I love startups. I would just want to do it again. Like, and so the founders has to be careful about like who they're bringing, who's going to help them scale. But is this the right person? It's not even just if they've done it before. If they want to do it again,
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. I'd be curious how you both have thought about when you've similar vein, like when the two of you have recruited co-founders for companies that you've started. How have you tackled that question?
Mine is easy. Can I go first, Pino?
Go.
So after my business was acquired, I am serving my sentence with my golden handcuffs. I'm thinking about the next one. I called a friend of mine that I really value his opinion. His name is Joe, by the way, but that's not that important. And Joe tells me that, Ike, you're good this, and that, but you're not so good this, and that. It might be a good idea for you to find a partner, co-founder that will fill your gaps. Here I am. I did.
Yeah, you did. Joe, great question. I've done 5 from scratch, 5 mostly tech, and I've always had partners. For I've always known what I'm not good at, and that's first step, which is where I just went what I'm not good at, and almost invariably they happen to be subject matter experts in that industry or that product. For I represent the operational skill and the capability to scale. So I know from left to right what it's going to take to get from 0 to 100%. But the actual product or the industry will be generally new to me. So I will go find someone there that has that level of augmentation to what I don't have. And immediately next to that, almost on equal level, is whether or not I can trust them. Trust them is just huge. And there's my mission, vision, core values. My simple core value is don't work with turds. So I cannot have the business jeopardized by someone that I cannot trust, and particularly not when it fails, but when it becomes successful. And then I get to see the real ugly green gorillas emerge. And so to negate that second element of trust, I almost always create what I call a divorce document, where we discuss this ahead of time before any amount of effort and passion and excitement overrides the logic required to think through everything. I have a divorce discussion, and a document is written up so that it reduces, not removes, reduces the emotional wars that can erupt later on. And I will tell you, for whatever reason, I've been very successful. All 5 of my partners from 5 different distinct businesses, we're still great friends. None of them have tried this. And and I wrote a blog post about this. Partnerships are fraught with risk for so many reasons. Everyone's coming with different baggage, different expectation, different skill sets. They're all trying to put on the best foot forward and face. And you don't know. And then when the pressure starts to kind of compress, and then you see the ugly warts.
Oh yeah.
So, sorry, a little bit of long bit on that, but I've had enough experience on that I had to tell you those are the 2 reasons.
How about you, Joe? You probably seen board meetings with multiple founders, the companies with partners, like what have you seen? What advice do you give?
I think that I can't imagine having the conversation myself, but a lot of times when we're investing, it's that moment. It may have already happened before us, or it's just on the cusp of happening, where one of the founders has sort of assented to, maybe for the first time, there's a clear CEO of the founding group, and the others are not. And maybe even this is the point where the assenting CEO says to the one or two or more of the other founders, "Hey, I love you, but I need you to take an individual contributor role. Like you are not going to be the C-suite person for what we need to happen in this next chapter of the business, or something like to that." And I can't imagine how hard that conversation must be. But I also know that as the founder that was selected to be the CEO, you can't back down from that moment just because of I don't want to have the conversation. You have to do it.